Welcome to the Big Blue Radio Show, coming to you on Tulsa Community College's online radio station, The Grid, and on the Creativity Channel. I'm Greg Stone, Provost of TCC's Metro Campus.
And I'm Leigh Goodson, President of Tulsa Community College. Our guest today is Lindsay White, TCC's Director of Diversity Outreach Programs. We'll talk about the importance of an inclusive learning environment and about the ways TCC reaches out to Tulsa's increasingly diverse community.
Lindsay White is our guest today on the Big Blue Radio Show.
Lindsay, thanks for joining us here today. And you're the Director of Diversity Outreach Programs.
Correct.
Right. And so we have a variety of programs associated with what you do. Can you tell us a little bit about the programs that you offer, and then also what's the impact for our students and then maybe the community at large also? Absolutely. I don't want to get too far ahead, but if you could just kind of give us an overview, because Director of Diversity Outreach Programs, what does that really mean?
Well, there are a lot of different programs right now that are currently under the umbrella of Diversity Outreach Programs. The biggest and most visible is the Education Outreach Center. So in the heart of East Tulsa at 22nd and Garnett, we have a center there that basically serves as a community campus, so to speak, for people in that community that can come and ask about, what do I need to do to get in college? What are the steps? How can I apply? How do I get financial aid? It's just such an overwhelming process for some students in the beginning that they don't know where to start. So it serves as a convenient one-stop location where students can come and find out more about getting into TCC. Then within that, there's also some specialty programs that we offer that are a little more in depth. For example, we have GED and Spanish classes. That's actually to prepare students to be able to take the GED in Spanish, which is important because in order to get financial aid and higher education, you do have to have some sort of high school proficiency. So that can help create, kind of give students the next step to be able to continue on. One of the other big programs that we offer out of the Outreach Center is the My Dream Scholarship Program and Peer Mentor Program. That's a privately funded scholarship that can give financial aid to students that wouldn't be qualified otherwise due to their immigration status. So as far as numbers, at least with those programmings that we're talking about, is with the My Dream program, there's about 40 in every incoming cohort or group. So at a total, there's usually about 100 students at a time that are taking advantage of that program.
So those students really stick with it.
Yes, and our retention on that program is similar to what we get with Tulsa Achieve. So we've been really excited to be able to retain those students as much as possible, provide them comprehensive orientations, and also go into a little bit more depth with them on mentorship as far as how can we help you overcome some of the barriers or the obstacles that you might be facing. Some of the other programming is we do some large signature diversity events, some partnerships that are excellent partnerships with our community. The Hispanic America Foundation, TCC
yes,
College
Pre-Friend
Luncheon, which Dr. Goodson is wonderful enough to often do the welcome for us at these events,
which
is excellent.
1,000 students there.
It grows every year. So those are some excellent programs. And of course, we're thankful to our community schools for letting the students get out of school for the day to come. That really shows how much they value the program as much as we do. Also the TCC NAACP event. But there's also various programming that falls under the umbrella, but there are some really excellent things for the community.
Well, Lindsay, I wanted to ask you about that too, sort of as a segue, because when we think about diversity outreach, we tend to think about issues and student populations based on race and ethnicity, but it's far more expansive than that. Right. What are the other diverse student populations that we need to be thinking about offering programming to, concentrating on, and reaching out to as a community? Right.
There's a good question. And lots of times you think about diversity, well, what does that really mean? And in its most simplistic form, I think it's just kind of the differences among us. But when we're talking about what that means for programming, is within not my umbrella necessarily, but the larger diversity and inclusion umbrella. Students with disabilities, or Resource Center for the Deaf of Hard of Hearing, and Education Access Center, places like that. Our LGBTQ population of students students, ESL, students who speak English as a second language, international students, single parents, low income. The goal of all of the diversity outreach programs and also diversity inclusion programming is just to make sure that when students come to TCC, they feel like they're included, they feel like we're providing an inclusive environment where they can be successful, and that we make everybody feel welcome and let them know that we as a community college want to reflect the community that we're serving. So any way we can do that and make those students feel welcome is really what our ultimate goal is.
Talk to us a little bit about what specific services are available to students that might be seeking services, and what kind of steps would they actually want to go through? So I'm a student, or I'm a parent of a student.
Right.
Maybe I know my student is first generation, so I don't, first generation college, so I don't know how to navigate the system.
Right.
What are some services that you might have that we would direct our prospective students
Absolutely.
to?
I think a lot of the services we tend to become kind of niche and serve certain groups. So I think the most important thing is finding someone in TCC that can refer you to whichever programs you want. So for example, when we talked about the Education Outreach Center or the Education Access Center, which focuses on disability services, it's important to figure out which of those programs are going to be most helpful. So there's an entire ESL department that has counselors that literally focus in just helping students who speak English as a second language. Our TRIO programs are also really excellent. So the TRIO Educational Opportunity Center offers some great programming to help students, like you just mentioned, first generation, I don't know how to navigate, and help students figure out what the steps are with a little bit more in-depth service than what one might get. Sometimes a student, if comes to a campus and then they say, okay, well, you need to go down there to the bursar, and then you need to go there to financial aid, and then you need, if you've been to college before, you might know what all those things mean, but some of the services like the TRIO Educational Opportunity Center or the Education Outreach Center can slow that process down. And then once a student gets here, they think, okay, well, now I'm enrolled, well, now what? Now what am I going to do? So we've got some really great retention services at the college. One example is TRIO Student Support Services, and they really go in depth with students individually and in a group. They have special workshops, they do college tours, but really take that another step. And there's also a fairly new department, diversity and inclusion programming, which is also going to focus on retention with a little bit broader student base than what TRIO has been able to do. So kind of taking that model and expanding it to a larger student population.
And that's really exciting because we've had such tremendous success with the TRIO programs. And so to see that model being scaled up, to use one of Dr. Goodson's favorite terms, is really exciting about what opportunities are going to be there for students. Lindsay, I also know that you're very actively involved in service learning at TCC, which really has, there have been pockets of service learning going on for a long time, but in the last few years, there's been really a concerted effort to bring that together and to really promote service learning. Can you describe what service learning means and tell us why it's such a high impact practice for students?
So service learning is just all about community service, but it's offered within a classroom or within the academic context to try to make that experience tied to the learning outcomes or whatever you're trying to teach the students in that class. So for example, if you were taking an environmental science class and you sent the students out to go pick up trash, if they just picked up trash, it's an excellent thing to do, and that would be, we would consider volunteerism. But if they come back into the class and they were to create some statistics or some pie charts saying, this is how much was plastic, this is how much was aluminum, this is how much could have been recycled, this is what the impact that has, that would really tie that experience to the learning outcomes or to the curriculum of the class, and really make it a little more meaningful for students, giving them a chance to reflect on what they've done and talk about what does that actually mean for our community in a larger context. And as far as it being shown to be a high impact practice, there's been national research that's shown that that's something that students need to do is have real world experiences to solidify their learning. We've also replicated with, for example, pre and post class surveys to ask our TCC students what they think. And they over and over again say that the learning occurs better for me when I have a chance to apply this in a real world experience. And they've also said after those classes that they plan to volunteer more in our community. And that's something that was really a big takeaway for me, is that we are helping create citizens, community citizens for Tulsa that are more engaged and going to be a great part of the Tulsa community.
Okay, so you talked about the one example of students going out, picking up trash, and then figuring out what percentage is plastic, what percentage is paper. So that's one service learning project. Tell us about maybe another example, and then how students would seek those out and get connected with those opportunities.
Right. Well, there's a ton of amazing examples, and I'm always very impressed at the creativity that our wonderful instructors come up with of all the different projects that are possible. When a student signs up for a class, they can actually search for this through our online enrollment. We have classes that are designated service learning, so they can actually search for those, as well as some programs such as honors would also have a component, like a required service learning component perhaps, or something like that. There are the kind of traditional service learning that people think about, but there's a lot of on-campus things where we can actually use students as a community. So sometimes students will even have a project where they're teaching other students about sexual assault awareness or teaching them about financial literacy. In the classes, sometimes the professor will choose to let students decide what they want to do so they can try to find something that might be in line with their career goals, or they might go out as a class and do an activity together and then come back to the classroom and reflect on it. So there's a lot of things done with Food Bank and Day Center for the Homeless, and just any nonprofit you can imagine. There's likely that there's been some TCC students working there.
Well, and then certainly our Tulsa Achieves program contributes to the service learning that we have going on here at TCC.
Absolutely.
Great. That's great.
Lindsay, we just have a couple of minutes left, but we want to ask you the question we always ask our guests, which is if you could go back in time and give some advice to your 18-year-old college-bound self, what would that advice be?
And you said how many minutes do we have left? Because I could probably write quite a bit on advice to give my 18-year-old self. But I think I would start with saying I wish I had known sooner how crucial it is and how important it is to get to know your professors in college. I think I didn't realize that until later on, that the relationship building aspect of that, how big of an impact that can have with your future. So there's the practical aspects of that as far as having someone to help you, possibly be an academic reference or a reference when you're trying to gain employment. But just the knowledge that they have, they're just such an untapped resource that sometimes we don't take advantage of. And your professors, you can have really great relationships, and they can sometimes become your biggest ally, your biggest advocate, and even a great friend. So I wish I had known that. On the less practical side, I would just say, love what you do or do what you love. And I think that's something I would tell myself as well.
That's great advice
That is
for anybody
great
to
advice.
remember. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is all the time we have for today, but we want to thank our guest, Lindsay White, for joining us today on the show.
And thank you for being here too. Remember, you can find us every week online at The Grid, tulsacc.edu/thegrid, and on the Creativity channel. We'll see you next time.